Let's go back to Pete, though, because he is currently coaching in the NFL. I heard people in December and even early January talking about this as a possibility. And I'll be honest, I never completely believed it, because if you saw Pete Carroll's farewell press conference on Wednesday afternoon, still a guy at 72 years old with so much passion, so much verve for doing this job. He's always one of the most excitable, passionate guys in the NFL community. And the Seahawks, look, it hadn't been wonderful for them this year, but they finished with a winning record. Even this downturn, the last year of the Russell Wilson era, and then the transition to Geno Smith, this is bad by the Seahawks standards. And they're still just 25-26 over Pete Carroll's last 3 years on the job. So playing 500 football, even as they try to find a way forward after all of those guys left. Pete Carroll, 3 losing seasons in 14 years on the job. Like I said, won the only Super Bowl in Seattle Seahawks history. Pete Carroll teams are responsible for more than half of the division titles in Seahawk history. Really put that team on the map. So yeah, I was a little bit surprised to hear it happen. And having watched his comments, I'm all the more intrigued by what's going on in Seattle, because when these sorts of things happen, it makes sense for an ownership group to do a clean sweep, to say, okay, everybody's gone, the general manager as well as the head coach. But in this case, John Schneider, the GM in Seattle, staying on. And I thought Pete Carroll made a couple of really interesting comments. Number one, he mentioned he wanted to have John Schneider to have the chance to lead the head coaching search. So John Schneider keeping his power as GM, basically getting a step up in authority, because Pete and John, during this run of success in Seattle, have kind of shared these duties. Pete Carroll has several times referred to it as a marriage. It sounds like it's going to be John Schneider running the show here moving forward. And this is me reading tea leaves, but it sounds like Pete Carroll agreed to go to give him that shot. Again, a very telling quote from this press conference. Pete Carroll said, "I competed pretty hard to be the head coach, just so you know." Doesn't sound like a guy who was ready to step down or ready to stop coaching. He said at the end of his presser that he's just as enthusiastic. He's not beaten down by the rigors of the NFL season. So I'm reading between the lines. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouths, but it sounds like Pete Carroll had the choice of, you step down or we do clean house and we just go in an all new direction. So at the very least here, Pete Carroll's going to be in some sort of advisory role. It sounds like his relationship with John Schneider is still very good. And John Schneider is going to try to keep some sense of continuity between the Carroll era and whatever comes next moving forward. So we'll see where this goes. If we're talking candidates, there's a couple of names that immediately come to mind. I know as soon as it happened, social media lit up with the name Dan Quinn, and understandably so. Superstar defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys, getting ready for their playoff game against the Green Bay Packers. Dan Quinn also was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons for several years, got them to the Super Bowl against New England famously. And, oh, by the way, was an assistant in Seattle under Carroll for 4 years, assistant head coach, defensive coordinator, coached the original Legion of Boom. So if you want to keep the vibes going with the Carroll ethos, makes a ton of sense. I get it. I think you would also throw out Shane Waldron, the current offensive coordinator, came up under Sean McVay. So it's a coaching tree that is all the rage in the NFL right now. And he's been in Seattle for 3 seasons. So again, kind of keep the vibes going. Another name that I would like to throw out, Tampa Bay offensive coordinator Dave Canales, served under Pete Carroll in a variety of different roles for 13 years. He just left. Tampa Bay hired him to be their offensive coordinator this year. Not going to say the Bucs had the best offense in football, but he did help them reach the playoffs, and he coached Baker Mayfield to the best year of his career. So Dave Canales, plenty of history with that organization. If they want to bring him back, crazier things have happened. And then all of the other major candidates, I think, make a ton of sense as well, whether it's your Ben Johnson, whether it's your Mike McDonald, whether you want to talk about Jim Harbaugh potentially making the leap to the NFL. I think all those names are on the table as well, but that's a handful of guys with very obvious ties to the organization that I think are worth talking about.